Iran has held a state funeral for approximately 60 military leaders and nuclear scientists killed during the recent 12-day conflict with Israel. The ceremony in Tehran drew large crowds with coffins draped in Iranian flags and portraits of the deceased displayed prominently. Amongst the dead is Mohammad Bagheri, Iran's highest-ranking military officer, who will be buried alongside his wife and daughter, also casualties of the conflict. Iranian officials report a total of 627 deaths in Iran, while Israel confirms 28 fatalities from Iranian missile attacks. The conflict ended with a ceasefire after U.S. military strikes targeted key Iranian nuclear facilities. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated he would consider further attacks if Iran's uranium enrichment reached concerning levels, a stance condemned by Iran's foreign minister, who warned against disrespectful remarks towards Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Meanwhile, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency has emphasized that military action alone will not halt Iran's nuclear ambitions, calling instead for a negotiated agreement. Ross Feingold, a political analyst, is joining us live from Taipei on this big story. Ross, thank you for being with us today on NewsX World. What do you make of these visuals coming in of the state funeral accorded to various senior military officials and nuclear scientists who lost their lives during this conflict?
I think you just used the key word, and that's visuals. The Iranian regime likes to use these kinds of visuals. They like to have large rallies and big posters of their leaders hanging off the sides of buildings. They like to get people chanting, and their most famous chants are "Death to America" and "Death to Israel." But this kind of performative politics only appeals to a segment of the Iranian population. At this point, it's not even the majority. We know that from the protests that have occurred against the regime in recent years. Most people in Iran, they don't want to be stuck in this never-ending situation where they're at war or close to war with the community of nations. And I think these kinds of public funerals and chanting and the visuals that they create, it just says that it shows again how disconnected the leadership is. And these are people who want nuclear weapons, even though the civilized world has made it very clear that's an unacceptable situation. And they just want to continue to punish their own people by doing activities like this. We have to be frank. They did lose the war, even though they're saying that they didn't. And now they want to claim that they have a victory and have big rallies. But really, the smartest thing for Iran to do would be to accept the offer made by President Trump, which is, if Iran really wants to have a civilian nuclear energy program, an international consortium could ship in uranium for their nuclear reactors, and sanctions could come off and Iran could start to become a normal country again. But instead, we see more of the same from Iran, which is abnormality.
Absolutely. Ross, now if we look at those who died in this conflict, how big a blow has Iran suffered militarily and to their nuclear program?
That's a really good question, because this is not the first time that Israel or the United States, for that matter, have assassinated senior leaders of Iran's military or its nuclear scientists, engineers, and physicists. And at least historically, Iran's military hierarchy, as well as its nuclear weapons research and development program, they've been able to recover. However, this is the first time that they've lost so many key people within a short period of time. So at least as of now, it's an open question whether they have people to replace these senior leaders who died in recent weeks. And we can only speculate, and I'm sure that's something that U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies are working on trying to figure out as well. I mean, we'll know in the coming weeks and months who gets promoted, who gets featured in the news, especially on the military side, because they tend to take a higher profile than the people on the nuclear side. So that's definitely something that we could only say is wait and see.
Ross Feingold, appreciate you joining us with your perspective on that story. The United